everybody. Well, it's been a minute since we had our last YouTube video, hasn't it? I think the last one we made was back in the summer, and we had just started our business, really, and wow, that took way more than I expected it to. And very shortly, we just really did not have any time to keep up with YouTube videos. So we're going to take another crack at this, though, because we've had lots of requests, which is super flattering. In fact, I was in Portland, Oregon, visiting some family back in February, and while I was at church, this really nice woman came up to me and asked, "Are you that Orthodox farming family?" And I had to say, "Yeah, yes we are." And so, okay, well, that was really encouraging. So we're back. I hope that the content we have for you is going to be helpful. I probably can't commit to any more than one video per month at this point because we're just like kind of busy around here between homeschooling and our little farm and our soap business. So we will do our best, and please let us know what kind of content you are interested in. We've heard a lot of requests for more about how we homeschool, more about our little farm, more about how our orthodoxy is all part of this. And I have a baby behind me, so I'm going to stop this right now and I will pick up in just a minute. Anyways, welcome to a very candid shot of my world, because when you have a life with small children, the risk of full frontal nudity is really high, but we're going to try to avoid that. Anyways, so here we are, and this is going to be super candid. That's the only way I know how to do it. Today we're going to talk about homeschooling. We're going to talk about Lent a little bit, because we're just about to start. Well, we are actually in the midst of Holy Week. It's Holy Monday as I'm making this video. And a little bit about what our farm looks like in spring. So I realized that I didn't actually stop and introduce us for anybody that's not familiar. My name is Annie, and my husband is Michael. We have 5 kiddos ranging from almost 3 to just turned 10. And we homeschool, and we have a homestead with goats and chickens, and 3 livestock guardian dogs, and a bunch of barn cats. And we raise a garden every year, and we usually do some broiler chickens and some turkeys. Also, we use the milk from our goats to make goat milk soap with, which we sell at farmers markets and online and at some retail stores. That's our main business. That's how we make our living, and we do it together as a family. And meanwhile, through all of this, we also homeschool our kids. So those are the conditions under which we are homeschooling and also extremely busy. So here I am coming to you again from the only quiet room in my entire house, my soap studio. And I'm not talking about soap right now. I just wanted to say a couple of words about the way that we homeschool, because I get a lot of questions about that from a friend who has a preschooler and asks, like, what is your number one tip for someone who is coming into homeschooling, or other people that I meet that they hear that we homeschool, like, oh, how do you do that? Or a friend who homeschools her little boy, but rather than what we would call old school homeschooling, is doing a hybrid program with the public school district that he is enrolled in. There's such a wide variety of homeschool approaches, and I feel like the first thing would be to kind of define our terms, because homeschooling is a really broad community. Like I say, there's lots of approaches, all the way from doing school at home in a hybrid with the public schools to doing what people call unschooling, which is where basically you let your kiddo kind of decide their direction. It's not totally freeform, but you kind of let your child choose the topics that they want to pursue at the time that they want to pursue them. And what we do is kind of right in the middle, honestly. I probably err a little bit to the unschool side, because one of the reasons why I like homeschooling is because it lets my kids kind of pursue their own interests. Now, that is not to say that we don't have some structure. The structure we use is an online free curriculum called Mater Amabilis, and I will post a link to that in the notes. But it's just the skeleton of a curriculum. You have to get the books and the materials and things like that, and it's based on Charlotte Mason. If you don't know Charlotte Mason, go ahead and do a Google search on her right away, because she was a really smart lady. She was a late 19th and early 20th century education philosopher, for lack of a better word, who had some really great ideas about how children learn best, and they were based on her own experience teaching. And anyway, so her philosophy kind of guides us. And I could go into a really long thing on that, and I probably will at some point. But today, like I said, defining terms. So when I say homeschool, what we are doing is some skill work. We do spelling, we do language arts, and we do math. And then a smattering of subject work: history, geography, foreign language, art, art appreciation, music appreciation. My daughter just started writing lessons at a local farm. Ag, I guess, because we live on a homestead, so they actually get a certain amount of agriculture science happening. Science for sure. We do science. Anyway, so there's some formal academic side to it, but also there's a lot of flexibility. Starting there with what we mean by homeschool, I guess I could draw out for you a little bit what we do in a day, because the structure of our day is really illustrative of our homeschool philosophy and our vision for our homeschool, which I think, going back to our previous video about how we homeschool when we're really busy, because we are always really busy, so busy that to the point that at one point I questioned whether it was really wise for us to homeschool, because it takes a lot of time, I feel, to do it well. Not as long as you might think. A lot of people that don't homeschool envision something that takes up time, kind of like a public school day, right? Which kids are in school from 8 a.m. or so to 2 in the afternoon. And as a former public school teacher, I can vouch for the fact that so much of that time is dedicated to transitions, to breaks, and to just kind of getting kids settled down and on task. And that's not a problem that homeschoolers really have so much. Us maybe more than some people, because we've got 5 kids that are schooling. But that's not something I have to allow time for. So the actual hands-on time of educating boils down to more like probably 3 or 4 hours for us every day. So academics are important, but I feel comfortable saying that I think that academic work is not... I might get fried by some people for saying this. I feel like academic work is not the thing that I'm the most concerned about. I am concerned about it. We do a lot of it. I want my kids to be able to grow up and be doctors if that's what they want to do. I had wanted to be a veterinarian when I was a kid, and I have a lot of science background, in addition to a master's degree in rhetoric. So academics is important. But this goes back to our family culture and homeschool. One of the reasons why we homeschool is because we think that their parents, me and my husband, should be some of their top influences, and along with their godparents and along with their spiritual father, our pastor, our priest at our church. And so we want those to be the people that they are the most exposed to. Also their siblings. Sibling relationships do a whole lot to knock off your rough edges. I can tell you, as the youngest of 4 children, that a lot of my repentance has been fueled by my sibling relationships. So they have a lot of influences that are important, but one reason why I feel that way is because I have heard and read in so many places that kids really watch more than they listen. You can tell them anything you want, but they will pick up from you, from your behavior, whether that's true, what really is true. They just absorb all of those things from watching us so carefully. So the people that are available to them to watch, I'm really choosy about. And I just feel that sending them to an institutional school, I don't have as much influence over that as I would like to have. So, but I can hear you say, and well, you should say, but am I and my husband the best people to influence them? Well, I'm going to say that because God put them in our lives. I hope so, but this involves a whole lot of work for us. So, for instance, the reason why I say I feel like the academic side of this is not as important, it's not the most important thing, it's because I think that the formation of my character and my husband's character and our repentance and our spiritual life are more important. And it's a whole lot of work. I have a lot of repenting to do. So going to church services, reading the scripture, doing a lot of prayer, abstaining from things, fasting in traditional and non-traditional senses, having disciplines that are spiritual, all of that is really important. And that's really my first priority so that I can be a person who's fit to educate my children. And that's a super tall order. And I'm working on it every day. But I feel like that is really the most important thing. And so I guess if anybody were to ask me, what's the number one piece of advice I would give to any homeschooler, it would be someone that it's good for your children to emulate, because they will. So on a practical note, and especially in regard to homeschooling as a really busy person, I do not try to do a separate curriculum for each of my children. My youngest school-age child is kindergarten age. I have a toddler younger than that who is up and coming super fast. She's incredibly smart. We embrace more of a one-room schoolhouse kind of a model, which means that for skill work, for spelling, for writing, for math, things that are leveled by nature, we do those on separate levels. I have two kiddos that are at the same level in math. Their skills just work out that way. The younger one just was snapping it up really fast, and the older one is more like me, which means he's more artistically bent and less mathematically so. So we struggle together. But otherwise, except for those skill subjects, we do things together. So we do history together, we do science together, we do art appreciation and arts and music appreciation, church history, things like that. All of those things we do together, geography. And because we embrace a Charlotte Mason philosophy, we really don't use a lot of textbooks. The couple of textbooks we use Story of the World for our history spine, like what kind of like directs the direction of our history. And we use Mathematics Enhancement Program, MEP, for our math, which by the way is free. You can get it for free. I actually order the published books just because it's easier for me, but you can print this off the internet, and I will put that link in the notes. But Charlotte Mason advocated for using what she termed living books, which means basically books that were written by people who were experts in their field and who were genuinely interested in what they were writing about. Textbooks tend to be a mile wide and an inch deep, and hard to retain information from, and just generally kind of boring and difficult to engage with. Whereas if you read a book written by an expert about their topic, it's a different story. So for instance, I try to think of an example. Oh, there's a book called By Truck to the North, which is a great book full of pictures and maps. And we're using it for geography, but it is about a long-haul truck driver who uses ice roads to convey groceries from Vancouver, Canada, to very far in the north in the Arctic Circle. And he's driving on ice roads, and he talks about what that's like. So my kids really care about where he is. They want to know all about what ice roads are, what it's like to live in the Arctic, where the Arctic is. There are a million things that tie in with that. That they're going to retain because of natural interest. If you will, they have hooks to hang that information on, right? It's not just random facts that are thrown at them that bear no relationship to anything else that they are doing. So I'm a huge fan of the living books approach. And so almost all of our history and geography is taken from that. Again, Modern Automobilists, they have their curriculum has led me to books that I did not know existed that are a huge hit with us, and that I can't wait to go back through with my younger kids when they arrive at the age where they'll be interested in them. So on the subject of skill work, because again, we're talking about doing homeschool when you're almost busy enough to wonder if it's a good idea. What I find is if I do a little bit of it every single day, and also if we do it almost first, so like I said, we do the spiritual stuff first, and then we go to academic work, and first we do skills. So we start with either math or spelling and writing, and we go from there. That kind of gets the hard work out of the way first. And what I find is for each kid, probably we spend about 20 minutes to half an hour on each of those things. And my kids are really pretty young. My oldest is 10. And so, again, going back to Charlotte Mason, she encouraged really fairly short intervals to spend on any subject because in order to help a child grow their habit of attention, of expanding their attention, you want them to not develop the habit of inattention, which means not letting things go so long that their attention drifts. Discipline is really important, but I challenge you to discipline yourself to pay attention to something that way beyond the span that you would normally give it. You really have to kind of increase your attention to something that you're not excited about a little bit at a time. So she encouraged using short spans. And I find that for the skill work, that means that every day we do it a little bit, we stop before anybody gets genuinely frustrated, and we pick it up tomorrow. And that means that bite by bite, we really get somewhere with it, and no one dreads it because we never spend so much time slogging away at it that it's just really intolerable and exhausting. So that's my advice for skill work, because it is really, really important. And I never feel so much like I'm falling apart in regards to homeschool as when we're letting math slide. And that's because I really dislike math. I've always really disliked math. So it makes me feel like I am hiding from something I hate. And that's not a feeling that I enjoy. Lent. So if you're Orthodox, Lent is 7 weeks long. Well, it's 6 weeks plus Holy Week. And it's a time of fasting, it's a time of increased prayer, and it's a time of more church services. So if we weren't busy before Lent, we are extra busy during Lent. So we are even more challenged in terms of doing school and getting all the things done. Also, Lent happens in spring, just before Pascha or Easter. And that means that we often have a ton happening on the farm also. Baby animals are being born. We're getting our batches of chicks and turkey poults for the year. And we are probably starting some seeds indoors before planting a garden outside. We are inventorying hay and figuring out what we need, and we've got serious end of winter barn conditions, which if you've ever lived on a farm, even if you really try hard during the wintertime, especially in a snowy climate where the animals spend a lot of time inside, and goats spend time inside in bad weather because they are very fair weather animals. The end of winter barn conditions are a challenge to maintain in a healthy way. So we're extremely busy in the spring. But again, going back to prioritizing the spiritual life in our family culture, that doesn't mean that we want to let anything slide. Everything is important, and that's kind of the problem. So we've chosen a few things in the last couple of years that we felt were incredibly helpful to keep us on track. We do try to make it to as many services as we can. Also, at this time of year, I feel like we always get sick at least twice during Lent, and it's just, I don't know. Anyway, so we try to make it to every pre-sanctified liturgy that we can, but usually that doesn't happen. So there's that, making it to as many services as we can. We also use a book called Tending the Garden of Our Hearts by Elisa Bielitic and Christina Wenger, which is a great Lent book that is full of meditations for families. There's one for every day of Lent, and they always have a really great little short meditation and then some questions at the end so that you guys can think about it and discuss it. And our kids always really look forward to that. just a side note, there is kind of a corresponding book called Welcoming the Christ Child that is for the Nativity Lent, so the 40 days before Christmas. And it's very similar. So I really recommend both of those because our kids really look forward to them. And every year we get to learn something new and discuss something new because the kids get a little bit older. So each year somebody's going to have a different question than they had the year before. Something's going to stand out that didn't stand out last year. So it really is a book that has a very good ongoing interest for us. So Tending the Garden of Our Hearts, highly recommend that. And then we use a Lent paper chain, which is sort of very old school, institutional school, I know, but my kids really like it. And before Lent starts, we spend time together cutting and pasting, and then every day during Lent, they remove a link so every time that they ask me, how long is it until Pascha again, Mom? How long is it? I can say, well, just go look at the paper chain and count. And that will tell you how many days there are, as long as we have kept up with it, which is sometimes a problem. Sometimes we get behind. But mostly they're very excited to take the links off, so we keep up pretty well. Finally, we include the prayer of St. Ephrem, which is a special Lenten prayer that Orthodox Christians use. We make sure to include that in our morning and evening prayers. And we also dress up our prayer corner in appropriate colors. So in Orthodoxy and in Catholicism, the Catholicism that I grew up in also, but like basically high church traditions, there are usually seasonal liturgical colors, right? And Orthodoxy has these. So Nativity is red. Theophany is usually green. Lent is either black or dark purple. Pentecost is green. The Feast of the Theotokos, the Virgin Mary, are blue. Anyway, so we try to change our prayer corner colors to match what's going on at church, and that kind of keeps us in the right mind frame. Or we decorate, right now. So it was Palm Sunday just this last Sunday, and we put our palms from church in our prayer corner. And we got some pussy willows way, way, way back at the beginning of the season, because this year we had an extremely early spring around here. So our pussy willows actually made their little catkins before Lent even started. So we had to think ahead and cut them and save them all of this time so that we would have them at the right time. Why pussy willows, you ask? Because it's Palm Sunday, right? But Orthodoxy is a big presence in a lot of northern countries, like Slavic countries, where they don't have a huge number of palm trees. What they do have are pussy willows. And so it became a tradition to use pussy willows instead of palm branches. In America, we often will just use both. But because our church is from a Slavic tradition, it was founded by Carpatho-Russians, we use pussy willows, and I really like that little tradition. So we saved some, and then we changed the icons in our prayer corner to match like the festal icon. Right now, it is Christ the bridegroom that is in our prayer corner for these next couple of days, the first few days of Holy Week. Then it would change to the mystical supper icon on Thursday, and then the crucifixion icon for a couple of days. Anyways, so we try to keep things seasonally appropriate, and that is part of maintaining what St. John Chrysostom called our little church in our home. And that really helps us a lot to stay mindful of our season. So there's what homeschooling looks like for us in a nutshell, kind of a general overview to answer your question. Well, how do you do that? Because it looks different for everybody. Some life schooling, some unschooling, some actual rigorous academic seat work, a curriculum we follow loosely, and a lot of inspiration from Charlotte Mason, but mainly driven by our desire that the spiritual life should be the top priority for us as a family, and that we should be able to preserve our family culture in the lives of our kids. And also so that we can spend as much time with them as possible, because we like them. The idea of them going off to school for 6 hours a day and us maybe not seeing them for more than a few hours every night and a little while every morning, it's just not good enough for us. We really enjoy spending time with them. So school and doing business together and running a farm together allows us to do that. Now, we should have another video up for you in a couple of weeks, and I think it's going to be a little bit more also about homeschooling, because there's just so much more that I can talk about in that respect. Just homeschooling really touches every area of our lives, and it looks so different for everybody. But maybe you'll find something useful in the way that we do it. I hope so. Anyways, thank you for joining us, and God bless, and Christ is risen. Happy Pascha.
Hi, we're the Dannies. We have a 3-bar cross on our door and goats on our porch. We are Orthodox Christians and first-generation homesteaders, and we are the owners of Dayspring Farm Soap Company, making quality handmade goat milk soap. Come along with us as we do the homestead life with Jesus, goats, and soap.